Hi everyone, welcome to the Arcanna walkthrough. What you currently see on the screen is the main dashboard that the users can access right after authentication. The information contained includes health checks for the platform status and also potential actions or suggestions for the users in case there are any actionable items over the jobs in Arcanna. We will get back to this a bit later. The initial part is the setup. So how do we get data in Arcanna? And what happens afterwards? Well, the first step would be configuring the integrations. As with anything in Arcanna, everything works on a principle of no code. So configuring integrations, creating integrations for Arcanna to use is fairly simple. All that we have to do is just complete some forms and add some parameters depending on the actual integration. So we'll just go with a simple example of Elasticsearch integration. And the configuration would look similar to this. So once we select our categories and subcategories, right, we want to get data from Elasticsearch. The integration has a few parameters: host, port, username, password, the protocol for connection. Just simple things that can be provided by the team handling that external systems. If we would want to use something else, well, of course, different parameters, but all in all, the process is exactly the same. Now, once we have all the integrations configured, we can actually start building our new AI job. Now, AI jobs specifically, you could say each AI job is similar to a workflow, a pipeline, data pipeline. Basically, data is being collected. It is being run through the machine learning engine. And Arcanna does provide a decision for each record being processed. And that record can further be used in external systems if desired. So let's just jump into the job creation. As with the integrations, the job creation is also built on the no-code principle. So we just have to complete some steps, and that's kind of it. For this specific example, we will get data from an Elasticsearch cluster from one of our production environments, and we'll see what all the steps are further on. So we give the title for it. Further identification. The category for the moment is just decision intelligence. So that's what we'll pick. The input step is basically the place where we want to get data from. In our case, it's one of the configured integrations. As you can see, all kinds of integrations are available, so configured. But we will go with one of the Elasticsearch clusters as mentioned. So in this case, we'll just pull some Suricata data, IDS. Specifically alerts. All the parameters can be provided by the Elasticsearch cluster administrators if case. We can actually select start times, end times, so we can actually get data from the past also if desired, or from multiple indices or data collections, if we're talking about Splunk, for example. Now, the processor is the machine learning component. And if we check the list, we only have one generic model. So there are no pre-trained models. Each time a job is created, that specific AI job has its own models. So you basically train your AI from scratch. So no bias there. Output. The output section is specifically set for where do we want to store the results from Arcanna. So the decisions, basically. We can store it in any of the configured integration that support result storing. In this case, we will actually save all the results just back in the same cluster. There is a fifth step, optional, but it can be used. So once we have results from Arcanna, we can actually further use those results in other external systems automatically. What does that mean? Maybe we want to create cases in a case management system. We might want to send some data nodes back into a SIEM, for example, IBM Curator, or even get back some notes regarding the decision in Splunk. For the current walkthrough, we will be skipping the automation integration and just create and start the job. So that was it regarding creating a job. We just configured the full workflow, full data pipeline. So we should be getting data from our Elasticsearch. So let's see. Okay, we already have data being pulled. So I will just pause the job for a second there. We already have 600 records. That's fine. I will just go back to the main dashboard. So as I mentioned initially, this specific section with actions might sometimes reveal some actionable items for the users. So I just created the demo walkthrough job, and the system detected that the job itself doesn't have ML features. Well, if I'm a new user, I wouldn't know that. So this specific section actually helps a lot. So let's just jump into, we have shortcuts for the actions. So we can just quickly jump into the feature selection and do the next steps. Okay, so what do we have here? First of all, we have a quick viewer for events. I want to be able to see my data set just to get a glance of what's available, what could I use for my job, right? I will need to select my relevant data points as features for the job before the machine learning actually kicks in. So just by browsing a few records, I get a sense of what kind of data is available. So I will now be able to select some of the fields to be used. So going further on, let's see. So I do have some very interesting fields in the data set. I will just select these. And I do want the machine learning engine to use them, right? So I just selected a few of the available fields. Well, not all are supported, but the ones I selected are. So to add them, I just have to press the arrow button and the fields get selected. Now, if you can see the plus sign, we also have some small statistics that might help the user decide if they really want to add a specific field as feature. We have the top values, and we do have some statistics regarding total entries, missing values for the specific field, and how many distinct values we actually have for the field. This might be helpful in some cases. Now, I did select my features, and I can just hit save right now. But afterwards, well, I did forget one field I would actually like to have. I would like to have the country name also for the alerts. Well, attacker's country, basically. So I'll just hit save again. Check. Okay, we do have some information here. Listing 5 countries. Yeah, this is useful, so I'll keep it. Let's go back to the dashboard. So right now, let's start the job. And let's see. Data is being pulled. Okay. Awesome. We have a new action. So if I didn't know what my next step would be, Arcanna actually provided me another actionable item. So demo walkthrough requires feedback. Okay, let's see what that's about. Feedback. Okay, so we did jump in the feedback view. What we currently see are the actual data points, fields / features that we selected earlier, right? So what Arcanna does in this case, based on the selected fields as features, Arcanna will try to group multiple alerts under unique scenarios. So as you can see, we actually have 3.9K records. I will just pause the job for a second. We have 3.9K records being processed. But if I go to the, let's go back from the main dashboard. If I go back to the feedback view, I actually have, well, it says 24 total buckets. So there's a huge discrepancy in numbers, but the discrepancy is here because each scenario actually accounts for multiple alerts, for multiple actual alerts, right? So Arcanna tries to minimize the records for which the analyst, the user, actually has to go and provide feedback or investigate, right? So out of 3.9K records, we actually have to go only through 24 of them. So that is a bit easier, let's say. So right now, let's see, what can we do? We can see the data, right? And we do have the initial label. By default, as I mentioned, we only have a generic model, so models from scratch. We will build our own AI during this walkthrough. By default, everything is escalated because we want no bias. We want to fully train our AI. So let's start doing that. How do we train the AI? First of all, we have to provide the feedback. So let's say I do have a few alerts in here that I know that are false positives, and I would like the AI to drop them. So I will just change the label to drop and hit save. I just provided feedback. Now for others, well, there are some of them that I would like escalated because, well, these are potentially malicious attacks. So I really want them escalated. And probably further on, I would want to have cases opened on them so they can be properly investigated. Okay, let's see. Anything else? No other actions on the job itself. But given that we provided feedback, well, 13 items, basically, we actually have the history selected. So we do have, oh, my bad. My job, please. Okay. So if we go here, we can actually see we have a set of analyzed entries, right? We just provided feedback on them. So that means we do have entries that are not being used by the AI model, but they will be once we train the model. So how do we train the model? Let's go to the training dashboard. So we have a few entries. We confirm 6 of them, change 6 of them as decision points. And right now we want the AI to learn. How do we do that? Well, we just hit retrain. In this moment, a new model is being generated based on our feedback. And once the retrain, well, it already finished. Once the retrain has finished, the new model will go into effect, and all the new records will be processed using the new model. So let's just start the job again and see what happens. Meanwhile, let's just check another job. There's a certain feature that hasn't been used in the actual walkthrough job. So in feature selection, there is another thing that can be done by the analyst. So as you can see, there are fields, data points with generated in their name. This kind of information is not the information available in the default data set. This is actually added by the user that created the job. So the users can actually add their own features based on the existing data set. You can call it annotation, notes, or extra context. But the idea is that we do allow users to add their knowledge into Arcanna regarding the data set without having to code or, well, use, let's say, any advanced data science techniques or code. So going to the custom entries, let's take one by example. So event severity, let's check this one. It's a good example. So usually the severity for different IDS, IPS systems usually comes in a numeric format. It can be 1, 2, 3, like informational, low, medium, high, etc. Yeah, but in some cases it might be the other way around. 1 might be critical, and 3 might be informational. So what Arcanna allows you to do is remap those values to something that makes more sense, to something with more context. This is being done through the creation of custom fields, right? So basically, you can provide different labels, annotations, categories, and based on the available conditions, you can map new values and create a new field that can be used by the machine learning part. So let's take another example, right? IP addresses. Well, by default, the IP addresses don't have any meaning, right? But while investigating, we know analysts have some prior knowledge about different subnets, about IP addresses being internal, being a guest network, being a DMZ network, and so on, right? That's context, and that matters when you actually investigate. That's what the analysts are usually looking at. So another possible scenario is to actually add the extra context by specifying what kind of zone that IP address is part of. And this is extremely useful. Now, going back to this specific job, if we check the custom fields added by the user, well, we have the destination IP, right? We have the zone, and that's extremely interesting to know. We have the destination port again. Well, what's the port being used for? By itself, it's just a number. It might be anything, but our analyst knows exactly what the ports are being used, or if some ports shouldn't exist, shouldn't appear in alerts, maybe because of firewalls or other things, but they shouldn't. So some of them are uncommon, right? So our analysts actually added annotation for that part. Severity is, of course, the mapping we just talked about. Host names. Well, usually assets have naming conventions, so you can actually add in the role for a specific host. That is extremely helpful, and it's way easier to investigate having this kind of information, which is not available in the default dataset. And another example would be network bytes. In this case, we have high usage, low band. This might also be interesting in correlation with the other data points available, right? So getting back to our job, let's see what's happening here. Okay, we have about 16K records. I'll just pause it for a second. Let's see what happened. So first of all, let's see how the dashboard looks. Okay, so we just trained it. We provide feedback on 13 items. We have 16K records processed. About 75% of them are currently being dropped and 25 escalated. We do have 39 different scenarios in place. This looks pretty good. Let's see how the feedback section looks and what kind of insights we get there. So we have escalated entries, we have dropped entries, and if you can see, we have this new state. What does this mean? So first of all, we lost the initial fully escalate everything because right now we already have a model. So the model does take its own decisions. From now on, we will just have to adjust the behavior where we consider that it should require changes. We'll get to that in a second. But regarding the new state, what's the new state? Well, this means that this specific scenario has not been seen before. So the AI is already providing insights on new scenarios. And if we go through the available scenarios, all of them are actually new. Now, if I uncheck the exclude, we should be able to see the ones we also provided feedback for, right? For this one, for example. So the state for this one is in knowledge base. This means it has been assimilated by the AI model and it's currently being used in processing. So yes, we do have the set that we gave feedback earlier. Now, getting back to the new ones, all of these are totally new scenarios. So we have a working AI model. Now, what happens if I have to do some adjustments? Well, okay, this is, I want these escalated actually. So I'm already seeing a very good AI here. So I'll just confirm these. A few random. The AI will continuously learn. So I don't have to provide feedback for everything. I just have to do some sampling and just make sure that I don't see anything that's wrong. I would like to find something that's wrong, but unfortunately the AI, well, the AI actually learned from my feedback, so nothing bad here. Wow, we could escalate something that I wouldn't escalate this by default, but I do want it escalated for the purpose of readjusting the model. So going back, let's see. Well, yeah, I do want to drop. I will confirm these. These are all fine. Okay, perfect. So going back to the training dashboard. Well, I have 7 confirmed. I have 1 changed. The one, well, everything was actually perfect, but I did want to change my decision suddenly, and this might actually happen in real life. Processes change, environments change, so sometimes we do want to adjust the way of how we take decisions in a SOC. So In this case, I just changed my mind. I did want to actually escalate the Python user agent type of alert and everything similar. So assimilating the knowledge, hit retrain again. That's kind of it. Currently, the data is going into the new model version. And once it has finished, and it's finished, we will Arcanna will continue to process using the latest model. So let's just see how everything looks now. Well, we are getting more data. Let's see, anything out of the ordinary here or not? We'll actually just take all of these by default to mark them. So, yes, I would like this one dropped actually in this case. Except that, no, nothing else. We'll just do another round of training. Scans. Yes, we can keep that escalated. This is perfectly just fine, confirmed. Everything else, I would like them escalated. As you can note, everything is still a new scenario. So we're just confirming what Arcanna is doing over new scenarios. And Arcanna is currently performing as expected. So these escalated. These I want dropped. And this one I want escalated actually. Going back, we confirm 16, change 3 of them. I want to retrain, and I want to see what's happening further on. Now, if I check, we do have some statistics. Currently, we did make some changes. So the 85% is because we actually changed our mind. It's not necessarily a bad thing. But in this case, we actually wanted to change the behavior. So this is actually expected. It will go higher. So let's see what happens. Right now, we do have the new model in place. So we will just have to see when more data comes in. Meanwhile, our overall statistics have changed a bit. The percentages between dropped and escalated changed. We are escalating way less alerts than before. And this is expected given our feedback and training sessions. So right now, well, we started getting, again, new scenarios, and that's fine. So based on the previous iterations, Arcanna is currently providing decisions over all of these scenarios. Let's see, would we want anything changed? Yes, for example, this one, I would like to investigate. I would like to escalate anything regarding SSH scans. So these are extremely new scenarios, haven't been seen before. The other ones, well, we want these escalated, of course. That's perfectly fine. Let's see. This one, well, yes, the alert says malicious, but in this case, it's a false positive for us. So we'll just, we would like to drop it further on. Except that most of these should be dropped, except the first one. Yes, that's perfect. So we'll just confirm these and this one. Perfect. Let's wait a bit more. Let's see what's happening. Maybe we get new scenarios. So Meanwhile, so the accuracy decreased because we did want to change some of the behaviors learned by Arcanna. This specific accuracy will increase over time, but right now, given it's a new job, initially the accuracy will vary between around 70% and 90%. Once it gets a bit more mature, it will go over 90 up to 99%. Okay, let's see what we have. Oh, perfect. This is definitely a new one. I definitely want it escalated. So yes, confirm, please. This one definitely dropped. Thank you. Let's see. We will keep waiting for a few more. So as you can see, the decisions and my feedback is actually changing the accuracy. So this will increase once I agree more with Arcanna, basically. So if Arcanna doesn't do mistakes based on my expected behavior, that accuracy will increase, which means, yes, I am just fine with the current Arcanna behavior. Let's see, 31K records going back. What's our percentages? Around 80%, 80% versus 20%. We did want to escalate a few more, so kind of makes sense. But overall, yeah, we are actually doing a good job here. Perfect. Okay, so 32,000. So we did provide feedback on 56 different scenarios, and Arcanna has all of the information assimilated in the AI model that's currently being used. So right now, if I am okay, well, we have a new set of scenarios. Let's see what's happening here. Well, Tor, Escalate, definitely. Compromise, definitely. And we do want to drop these from the default Suricata rule set. So that's perfect. I will just confirm everything. I didn't have to change anything. So Arcanna is actually behaving exactly as I would want it to. So right now, as I said, with each iteration of feedback, this actual accuracy will increase up to 99, 100%. So now that I do have a job that behaves exactly like I want, the final step would be to actually decide what to do with the decision. As I mentioned initially, we could create cases, maybe for escalated alerts, or maybe for both escalated and dropped, depending on what kind of SLAs we have or what our process is. But in this case, I would like to create cases for the escalated ones. And for that specific purpose, I will just go over an existing job that has the case management configured. So how do we configure case management? Well, in this case, we have a Hive, the Hive case management system. And all that we do, again, is setting up some default parameters for the integration. And in this case, a case template, how we would like to get the actual cases. Of course, the parameters are dependent on the actual integration. These are the parameters for the Hive case management. And what we specified here is what we would like to use from the data for the case title, for the severities. If we have IOC fields, we could also send them, because in this case, Hive also does IOC analysis. So why not? This actually helps us. We will have cases with IOCs analyzed and insights already provided, so we can just investigate the cases. And if I would like to have cases for drop also, I would just add the drop alert right next to it, and we would get more cases. But in this case, just escalate alert. So once this is being done, we will get tickets in the Hive. Now, there is a throttling mechanism here. So depending on the case, we might want to open cases depending on some conditions. We might want to open cases at a specific interval for the same type of alert. And when I say similar alert or same type of alert, we can actually do that correlation based on a field set. So in this specific example, the case management and case creation is configured to not create cases if alerts with the event severity rule name and signal rule name already have a case created in the past 12 hours. Which means, even though, going back to our job, even though we do have, well, 70%, of course, out of the total, but we do have 7.6K alerts escalated. So if we would have ticketing enabled for this one, well, we wouldn't get 7.6 tickets. We will actually get way less. And let's just go to the job that has it configured. Well, in this case, so escalated alerts 944,000, which is a lot still, but all in all, the case count is actually 1.7K. So this is all that an analyst has to go through over a specific period of time, of course, but related to the total alert count, which is almost 7 million alerts, this number is actually doable. Okay, that's kind of it regarding the walkthrough. Thank you very much.